All right, so day 2. We're gonna recap what we talked about yesterday a little bit about the goal setting process that'll guarantee you hit your goals. There's 6 steps. We'll talk about the first 3 steps today, and then tomorrow we'll cover steps 4 through 6. So the first 3 steps are get specific, break it down, and make it measurable. So those are what we're gonna be working on today. All right, so be specific, right? So being specific about what your goal is, what it is specifically, what you're working on. This is something you want to think about when it comes to an identity-based goal instead of a process or an outcome-based goal. So I always like to use the example of running a marathon because it's just, I think, really easy to visualize. So an outcome-based goal would be to run a marathon. The process-based goal would be to run 3 times a week. And then the identity-based goal would be to be a runner. So when we're talking about what your goal is, you want to really think about how you can create a goal that's identity-based so that you can kind of have that now. And then we'll work on the processes and the outcomes of what you're going to be working on. But for the goal to not actually be a process or an outcome, but to be more identity-based. So it's really important to know specifically what is your goal. And then, of course, it's really good. It's important to be specific about what steps, what tasks, what activities are required to reach that goal. And so why this matters, because like we talked about yesterday with the brain, your brain is trying to save energy. If it has to use the prefrontal cortex too much, it resists, right? So we need to be very specific. And we need to really simplify and really get clear on what are those required tasks so that your brain can, not expend too much energy. And then step 2 is breaking it down. So breaking your goal down into steps, taking sort of like your big 1-year goal and creating it into smaller manageable steps, just like we are working on 3 months at a time as well. Because we don't want to overwhelm your brain, right? Too many steps overwhelms your brain. So I like to, aside from breaking things down into, we're doing, 3-month plans, but you also want to kind of break your biggest goal into about 3 steps. If you do 2 steps, you're going to end up with too many tasks that are going to overwhelm your brain. And if you do, maybe 4 is okay, but 5 or 6 steps, you're going to really overwhelm your brain again. So you want to find a good sweet spot. I think about 3 steps is a good breakdown. And then once you identify those 3 steps, you want to work on breaking those steps down into like individual tasks and then into activities that you might be working on daily or weekly or monthly, depending, right? Why this is important is because your brain, is trying to conserve energy. Your prefrontal cortex needs a break from decision making so that you can have enough willpower, right? Because willpower is finite. And then, like we talked about yesterday, the part of your brain called the monitor that knows how much progress you're making and tells you when to keep going or when to quit. Having a really good breakdown of your goals and what you're working on is going to really help alleviate that decision fatigue, increase your willpower, and help your brain to stop fighting you, right? So we're going to just dive right in to page 7 of the workbook. So yesterday we just did a kind of basic outline looking at where you were from Q3, where you want to be for Q4, what you need to move over, what you're doing. So now we're going to work on outlining on page 7 your 3 steps. So you might have already created 3 steps for your goal for the year, right? Allie and Kelly, you probably have already kind of created your 3 steps, but this is a rough idea of, okay, what's my goal? What are the kind of main steps for that goal? And what are some tasks that need to be created? So breaking these into like, I think Megan, you just said you wanted to be making some income. What did you say? Sustainable income or something from your business, right? That was kind of your goal.
A reasonable salary.
Reasonable salary. There you go. So you might break that into tasks of like, your forge and fashion side of your business versus your organizing business. So those might be separate tasks, maybe a task like, your social media, your website, and your, what's the platform you use to do your forge and fashion stuff?
Poshmark and eBay.
That's right. Yeah. So you might divide it that way. I think, Kelly, didn't you do your steps were kind of like your book, your podcast, your stand-up or something, right? Like, so dividing into those steps and then tasks that need to happen. That's what this goal outline is for. And then we will get more specific, breaking down each individual step later today. So right now it's just a general outline of where you need to be, what you need to be working on. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about habits, and then we'll dive into breaking those steps down into tasks. Okay. Alrighty. So were you guys able to do a little bit of a breakdown there? All right, so that is just, you know, kind of the first part. We'll get to breaking it down and more specific in a second, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about why it's important also to make your tasks and steps measurable, right? So we need to have a way to know your progress, right? You need to be able to tell if you're on track accomplishing your goal throughout kind of each step. It's not enough to just like have an end point, right? You got to have stops along the way to know if you're on track, if you need to recalibrate or change something. It also is really important for your brain, right? To have those kind of, we have that immediate reward bias in our brain that needs to have quick payoffs, right? So we want to have ways to tell that we're making progress and, you know, ticking boxes and stuff like that. A really good way to make things measurable is by creating daily and weekly tasks, because those are really, you know, you can check them off. Checking things off the list can help. And it also is a good way to tell that you're making progress and moving forward. Another important way to make things measurable is to not use progress metrics. We want to use process metrics. So again, remember the identity-based, process-based, or outcome-based. A outcome is to run a marathon, right? The process is 3 times a week. So you don't want to use money like make $5,000 or get 200 subscribers. You want to do something like make 3 sales calls a week, or post consistently on social media, or increase engagement, right? Instead of just that process metric. It's better to look at those kind of metrics instead of the outcomes. Does that make sense? Right. And then where's my mouse? There we go. Plan Bs. That's the other one that we want to incorporate in here too. So plan B is making a plan ahead of time for when things don't work out. So like Ali said yesterday, you know, she wants to have a plan for when things get really crazy to be able to keep some level of consistency. Also though, a plan B might be for your daily tasks as well. Sometimes if there's things that you want to keep doing consistently every day, but you might not be able to because something comes up, you want to have a plan B for that ahead of time. Because even though you think in the moment, you could just come up with something else, you won't. Because remember decision fatigue and willpower, you want to have that decision made ahead of time so that you don't have to use the brain power to make the decision, you just have to use the brain power to take the action. So a plan B is a really good idea. I mean, I keep using exercise examples, but like if you don't go to the gym in the morning, then you'll make sure to take a walk at your lunch break, right? Or if I don't get my 2 emails written before I have my coffee in the morning, then on my lunch break, I'll do it. Or, you know, something like that. If I don't make a post today because I'm not feeling inspired, I'll at least engage with 3 people on social media. You know, those are those kind of things that can allow you to still feel like you're making progress and still keep the consistency, even if you're not doing the exact thing you wanted to do. And if you've already decided ahead of time that that's okay, that that's your option, you're going to be more likely to do it instead of kind of falling for the all or nothing thinking, well, if I didn't do it exactly what I want to do, then I won't do anything. Does that make sense? So we want to work on identifying some of those as well. And plan Bs are going to be something not necessarily for your big steps, but for some of your tasks or some of your daily activities, you're going to want to make sure you have some other plans in there. So how this all fits together from like we talked about yesterday with the brain is that, you know, your brain wants to conserve energy. So planning ahead is going to help you because in the moment when you have to take the action, you'll have more willpower and energy. Your brain has that immediate return bias. So simple lists and tasks can really provide that immediate return. And your brain's monitor needs to know your progress to keep you moving forward. So having a really detailed plan that tells you what progress you need to be making is going to help your brain. And then, of course, with the willpower, making plan Bs ahead of time is going to alleviate that decision fatigue, conserve your energy so that you have the willpower to do those important tasks. So we are going to do, this is the big step, right? This is the kind of longest and most tedious step, but this is now that we've created an outline, we've identified tasks we need to do. Now it's time to really break those tasks down into individual or those steps down into individual tasks that you need to do. And tomorrow I'll give you time and we'll work more on the kind of daily or weekly activities you want to do. Obviously, you can outline some of those here, but we'll have more time to really break it down to like what you'll be doing every day or every week. We'll do that tomorrow. This is to like in the workbook, I have 3 pages for each step, right? You can break it down, your marketing step, your whatever podcast step, whatever, right? So that's what we're going to spend time. So I'll give you guys 10 minutes to work on this. And then at the end of the 3 tasks, I actually changed my idea of how I wanted to do this. So on page 8, 9, and 10 are the pages for each step. But then we're going to skip the daily and weekly activities until tomorrow. We're going to jump to page 14, which gives you a spot to think about some of your plan Bs and your benchmarks for some of these tasks. So especially with the benchmarks, you don't necessarily need a benchmark for every single thing, but you do want to be able to tell how much progress you're making and what's going to kind of tell you if you're doing the right activities and getting you somewhere, moving the needle, or if you're not. So you want to brainstorm what some of those benchmarks and plan Bs should be. So I'll give us 10 minutes to work on outlining these steps and figure out some plan Bs, and then we'll jump into talking about habits and kind of nailing down some small tasks that we'll be wanting to work on. Okay. Alrighty, let's come on back here. All right, so how'd that feel getting some time to break things down a little bit? Feeling less overwhelmed or more overwhelmed?
Less, for sure.
Okay, that's good. Were you guys able to come up with some benchmarks or plan Bs? Or was that a struggle?
Forgot.
No, but mine was a time thing, not a.
Yeah, totally. That
Right.
worked. I know 10 minutes isn't quite enough. You'll have to do a little homework on your own to flesh this out more. And like I said, tomorrow we'll break down those tasks into steps, right? So we kind of do quite a few outlines so that you can really get clear on what you need to be doing and not try to do it all at once. All right, I was looking at some of my benchmarks that I had set last time, and a couple of them were just like a benchmark to know that I, am reaching my goal. Some of them was just actually doing it, because I hadn't been before. And the fact that I actually was making it happen and crossing it off the list is a good benchmark to show that, you are making progress, actually making it happen. So the benchmarks don't necessarily have to be, something really, really specific all the time, right? Or that it feels easier because you're finally doing it regularly or something like that, right? All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about habits. So habits are an important part of this because a lot of what we're working on here is breaking our goals into such small steps that we can kind of create some habits that are going to allow us to move forward and do things with with less willpower, right? So what is a habit? A habit is a reliable solution to reoccurring problems in your environment, something that you can do subconsciously without thinking, right? You've repeated it enough times, right, that it's become automatic. It's also an ingrained neural pathway in your brain. And habits are really who you are, right? Everything that you do throughout the day, those can be kind of thought of as habits, right? As what makes up you and what you do. So as far as the brain goes, a habit is part of the reward system of your brain. So dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter that your body makes, and then your nervous system uses it to send messages between your nerve cells. And this dopamine is released in the anticipation of a reward. So it's released when your brain sees the potential for a reward. So a lot of times people think dopamine's from the actual act of being happy. The act that you're doing creates the dopamine, but it's actually the anticipation of it that creates that dopamine. So your brain uses it to motivate, right? Dopamine can also be attributed to learning and memory, voluntary movements, and stuff like that. But it's really something that is a motivator, right? The anticipation of it. So when you come to associate a certain activity with pleasure, that anticipation is what increases your dopamine levels and helps you move into action. So a habit is a dopamine-driven feedback loop in your brain. So we understand how the brain works, we can understand how to effectively create habits. So again, the habits are about who you are, right? Each habit is over time enforces your identity, right? So there's no static habits. There's either habits that are kind of adding to vote for the type of person you want to be or taking away from it, right? So you want to really think about that when you're thinking about what are the things that I find myself doing daily? What are the things that I want to be implementing daily? When you're looking at creating or breaking a habit, it's important, again, to understand that identity-based, process-based, and outcome-based types of habits, right? Because we want to think about when you're trying to create a new habit, we understand about your brain and you look at the different types of habits, which one do you think is going to stick? It's probably going to be that identity-based habit, right? Because again, using the example of a marathon, the goal of running a marathon is going to lead your brain to want to quit, right? The moment you feel discomfort or pain, if your goal is to run 26 miles and you've only run a couple, your brain's going to be like, what's the point, right? So instead, having a goal or a habit that you want to work on that's, I want to be a runner. I want to be somebody who runs 3 times a week. That's going to really help your brain, right? So when we're thinking about these habits, we really want to I know I've talked about this a lot now, but think about the identity-based, not the process or the outcome-based type of a habit. So one of the common mistakes I see people making when they're trying to set goals, create habits, because in essence, a lot of what goal work is creating the habits, working on these simple steps, right? One mistake I see a lot of people make is trying to make too big of changes all at once, right? Thinking too big. You're trying to change too much all at once. And again, what we've learned from the brain, this is going to overwhelm your brain. So now that you know how the brain works, you can see that, right? If you're trying to change too much all at once, it's likely not going to happen. Yes, you can make all those changes, but you're going to have to do them one at a time, not try to do them all at once. And so a lot of this can fall into the perfectionist fantasy, right? Where we think we need to have like the perfect 10-point morning routine. We have to have all these things done during our time blocking or something like that. Otherwise, what's the point, right? And then it also can be about wanting to be somebody else, right? Thinking that you're somebody who could do all these things, and then you're going to feel confident and good about yourself and take action. So you make a big list of all the things that you wish you could be doing, instead of being realistic about what you actually can do. And this can lead to a lot of all or nothing thinking, right? Or black and white thinking, these cognitive fallacies, right? So if I can't do it all, then what's the point of doing any of it? So this can happen a lot, right? If you've, an example of the morning routine, if you set a 10 step morning routine that you really wanted to hit and you only were able to do 2 of them. So then the next day you think, oh, well, what's the point? I wasn't even able to do all of it, so I won't do any of it, right? So that's that all or nothing thinking. And so when we're thinking too big, it's really easy to fall for those cognitive fallacies. And it's also, being unrealistic. We often overestimate what we can accomplish in a day, right? Or in a 3-month period. We set a little too high of expectations for ourselves. And then when we inevitably can't stick to those plans, we feel let down. We erode our confidence and our trust in ourselves. It overtaxes our brain. And we kind of find ourselves in this cycle that often can lead to self-sabotage, which is, just because you were struggling in one area of your life, then you start to give up on other areas of your life too. So I don't know if anybody has found themselves in this cycle before, but it's pretty common. And it's a good example of, thinking too big, trying to change too much all at once. So like, has any of you experienced this, trying to stick with a meal plan or a workout routine or too many goals, and then you find yourself letting other things go in your life too after you've let that fail, and all of a sudden you think, what the hell is my problem? I can't even stick to any of this. It's because you're probably focused on too many changes all at once. So yes, we can. In a year, you could get that morning routine down to a 10-point routine, but let's do it one step at a time. Okay. So the solution is, don't underestimate the importance of really small steps, right? Small, consistent actions can really create lasting change. Those minute-to-minute actions, like we said, those habits, that's who you are. What you're doing from minute to minute, that's really who you are. And when we're looking at identity-based actions, we really want to think about shifting our identity and focusing on those kind of small habits at once, right? So we also want to understand compounding interest. So compounding interest is the idea that small steps compounded over time can create massive results. So instead of setting ourselves up for a large goal to start with, we want to start with something small that will compound over time, and then we can see some massive change. So we just want to pick one thing to start. Then we can relieve some of that overwhelm, and then we could actually see some progress, and we're going to help build back trust with ourselves. So some examples of small steps might be, getting up at 6 a.m. every day, actually getting up when your alarm goes off, right? Maybe it's checking your schedule every night if you're feeling scattered and overwhelmed with what you have to do. Maybe it's doing a time audit every Friday to see how you spent your time and to recalibrate and decide how you could do better next week. Maybe if you work from home, it's just making sure to actually get ready every single day. Or planning your week every week, something small that you can work on that will build consistency and build back trust with yourself. So you might be thinking, like, how the heck am I going to make 100,000 in my business, or whatever your goal is, just by waking up at 6 a.m. every day? But the only way to make lasting changes is to make things into habits, right? To make them who you are. And then you can build back belief in yourself. And you got to do that in small steps. The reason that you're failing often is because you're probably working too hard against your brain and your subconscious, because it just takes too much willpower to do all those things all at once. And we know willpower is finite. It gets depleted. And if your brain wants to conserve energy, it's going to stop you, right? And then you start to lose faith in yourself every time you set a goal, and then you stop yourself, right? Then maybe you lose faith in the system or in trying at all. And that you get kind of stuck in this cycle, right? So you got to build back trust with yourself. That's why we're going to start small. So, how to create successful habits that actually stick. So, we're going to reframe that mindset, right? Make it about who you want to be, make it about that identity based goal. We're going to pick small steps or habits that we want to implement one at a time. You also want to make your environment easier to do your habit or do your step. You know, if your goal is to wake up at 6 a.m. every day, maybe you get one of those alarm clocks that makes the light in the morning, right? Or maybe you're trying to sit down with no distractions at your computer first thing in the morning. So clean off your desk before you go to bed, you know, things like that, right? You want to master those really small choices. So that's why we're planning ahead. We're making plan Bs ahead of time so that in the moment we have that willpower. Another thing that can really help is downscaling, right? Downscaling your goal or your habit to something small, so small. I've been sharing on social media that my goal had been originally 30 minutes of focused work time every day, no matter what, weekends included. And that ended up being too much for me, which seems so ridiculous. Obviously, I was doing more work than 30 minutes in a day, but just that real focused, making sure I did it no matter what. And that ended up being too much. I had to scale it back to 15 minutes just because sometimes if I felt too overwhelmed, I said, just 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, right? So sometimes you can downscale. I think Megan, you and I talked about this a while ago, was the goal of sitting down, working for an hour was too much, but just sitting down with your coffee at 8 a.m., that was the goal, right? So just downscaling it to make it totally doable for your brain, also doable for that dopamine hit, right? Like, oh, see, I did it. I sat down, I have my coffee. That was the goal, right? So those are ways that we can really help set ourselves up to make these habits stick. And then, of course, those plan Bs or if then statements. So the last step today is to look at page 15 of the workbook. Again, I switched around what we were going to do, so that's why it's the last page of the workbook. But if you look at page 15, just brainstorming some small steps that you think could move you towards your goal. So you've already made your, you kind of know what tasks and activities you need to be doing. So now let's think about some really small steps that could be really important to help build that consistency. Yes, you're going to do those other tasks. Yes, you're going to do some of those things, but what's something that we can find, or a couple things that we can find that are small steps that you can build your trust in yourself, build back your consistency and your faith in yourself. So brainstorm here and then see if you can make them even smaller. Because like I said, my 30 minutes seemed like nothing and then it turned out to be a lot. So so small, you're almost rolling your eyes. It seems so insignificant. It could be a really good place to start. And then let's just pick 4 of them that we're going to work on this quarter. Okay. Obviously, you're going to work on your tasks, you're going to do other stuff, but these are the kind of goals that you're allowed to stake your sense of self on, right? Like, yes, I did them. Okay. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that, and then we can come back and talk about it for a second before we wrap up for the day. All right. Alrighty. What do you guys think? What do you think about coming up with some small steps?
I love the idea of those to like build up trust and yeah, it helps ground I just feel so much more able through small ways to get done the thousands of things that have just been festering up here. It's like, really, if I just gave myself an hour a day to focus on some freelance, like lead generating and like, yeah, catering my resume to certain jobs and just like getting outside exercising in the morning for like a half hour, I think that would set the tone and help me know that I'm moving toward what I've been wanting to design. So,
Nice. So what do you think you're gonna do for like after, we're done here for the 3 days, I want you to have 4 small steps you're gonna work on one at a time. And you're gonna work on implementing one at a time for 3 weeks before you add another, because that way, it's really become a habit. So have you identified 4 small steps you think you want to work on, or you still kind of have some general steps?
I have, and they are real little, um, but I want to be out of the house and do just 15 minutes of yoga and then spend an hour either working on my resume or following up on leads or generating leads for freelance stuff and be done with that by 9, and then I start my work day. And then in the evenings, I'll work on my website.
Nice. So do you think that doing 1 hour of work, is that something you've been close to doing already, or does that feel like it's going to be kind of a stretch?
I've been doing more than that, but the work's going to change because I'm almost done with all of the listings for clients that I have. Then I have to put my store on pause. So I'm going to be house sitting without my store and my usual work. Like I need to be building the freelance work up. So yeah, just an hour of like always looking for new opportunities, but then my day is spent with existing opportunities. Yeah.
Nice. So you feel like you could set yourself a goal that you could, I don't know what, set the timer for an hour every day,
Mhm.
or are you gonna be able to do that? Or maybe I recommend scaling it back. If an hour feels doable, then do something that feels so easy. You could do it
Okay.
already, like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can do more and you'll do more. You're obviously doing more work, but something that you can do no matter what, you can stick with it no matter what
Mhm.
for 3 whole weeks. No matter what comes up, you can make it happen. Could you do an hour, or does it need to be 30 minutes, do you think?
I could do 30 minutes. And there's a different discipline to like only doing what you said you did. Like I have a hard time with that because I'll just like keep going. So,
Yeah. Well, and you want to make sure that you do at least for those 30 minutes and then get up and go do something else or stop, so that your brain's like,
uh-huh.
oh, she said 30 minutes and she did 30 minutes, not, oh, you said yesterday is gonna be 30 minutes, that was 3 hours. So today I don't want to do it because that's too hard, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to work on that discipline because I like go over.
Yeah, because like I shared, my 30 minutes ended up being too much a couple days. I was dealing with so much overwhelm. So that's why I moved
Mhm.
it to 15 minutes. But it also could just be one thing, right? You could instead of a time thing, you could say, one thing for my business every day, if it's the resume or if it's looking for something. It kind of depends on
Yeah, I like
mentally
that.
and emotionally what you need to take care of.
Hmm.
Okay, great. Do either of you others want to share anything? Are you guys?
I think one of mine, I put just spending 15 minutes a day on Instagram on my Dating is Nuts, my podcast account, just commenting and responding and sharing memes and stuff. Um, just get in the habit of being on there because like I'll go on there and then do a bunch of stuff and then I won't go on there for like 4 more days. So um I'll have engagement and then I just don't see it for 4 days. So then, it's
Yes.
past. Um, And then same with YouTube Shorts, just getting in the habit of just being on there. And, I have this weird thing with social media where I'm like, I don't want to get on there and get sucked in and waste my time on there. Also, there's a lot of like negative stuff on there too that I'm trying to not full ostrich, but I don't want to like in the middle of my day just
Yes, blow it up.
yeah. So I'm just trying to find a way to like get in the habit of being on Instagram and YouTube shorts in that capacity, just commenting and stuff. And then once I'm in that habit, I think posting is going to be
Yeah.
because right now I'm like, I'll post and then I don't do anything else. And I think
Yeah.
I need to
Well,
do
and we talked about yesterday, right? Like you said, every quarter you've had the goal of like posting more regularly, and every quarter it hasn't really happened. I've been going through the same thing too. And I was thinking about, we've talked about too, how engaging on social media is almost as important as the posting too, right? And that maybe that could be the tiny itty bitty goal, is just like every day engaging in social in some way. Either you're posting or you're engaging or you're, like, so you're building the habit of doing something productive on social every day. Or maybe it's making 3 comments a day or 3 likes, or I don't know. What are you thinking? Do you have it, or setting your timer for 10 minutes to be on Dating is Nuts? Or what are you thinking?
yeah, like commenting, and then I also like sharing other funny dating posts and memes to my story so that my account is just visible and people think of it as a place to see funny stuff. So
how can you create that into, like, what's the kind of habit you're looking for here? Just like
we'll definitely like
social
comment
every day?
on other people's stuff every day, probably. But well, I was going to start with 15 minutes a day being on there, and a variety, like a combination of those things of like, because sometimes I find a ton of funny dating things to repost, and like sometimes I don't.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't want it to be just that. And then if I can't find anything good, I haven't done it. So if I can't find anything good, then I'll just comment on other people's stuff. And, you know, I'm going to post, like I've been posting anywhere between 2 and 4 clips from each podcast episode, but I'm only releasing an episode every other week. So that means
Right.
I'm not doing it every week. So I just want to get in the habit of being on there daily. Yeah.
That makes sense. Like intentionally being on there for 15 minutes every day. It's posting, it's sharing, it's commenting, it's like intentionally being on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good too. Like think of a phrase like that, engaging or intentional or something, because then you can be like, did I do it today? Was I intentional? Maybe I didn't find anything I wanted to share, but I was still on there. I was still intentional,
Well, and I'm trying to think about, like, for me, the middle of the quarter is when the baby's due. So I'm trying to think about, I don't want to make all these goals for like things I can do now because I won't be able to do them. I can be on Instagram while I'm holding a
100% you can engage on Instagram. Yes. You'll
I'm
be doing a
trying,
lot of that in the middle of the
I'm
night.
trying to think of it that way of like, okay, what are things that I can still do when I have a newborn, that don't feel like I have to sit down and write 10 pages of my novel every day. Like that's not, I would love if that happened, but I did put, open my second draft every day and at least read the last page that I wrote.
Yes.
Because usually if I read the last thing I wrote, that gets me moving forward. So
I love that idea, especially when you have the baby around. You might not be engaging all the time with your novel, but you have it in your head all the time. So you're engaging with it that way. And
yeah,
that's
then I
huge
can at
because
least keep
when you're
thinking.
inspired, then you could do something about it instead of just missing it for days and days and days and then being like, where? Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did you have anything you wanted to share, Allie?
I just updated mine to say 30 minutes a day intentional social media.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Like Kelly, my ADHD brain is like, ooh. Which is often Kelly's fault because then I see her stuff and I'm like down the comedian rabbit hole.
Just blame Kelly.
So 30 minutes a day.
You're welcome. Hopefully it's fun at least.
At least it's good content to lose yourself in.
Yeah.
But then also 30 minutes a day of working on. I really want to start getting in the habit until it's done. It's not something that I'll have to do forever, but website stuff. Cause you guys know my tech thing. It's like, I'll do everything but that.
Mm. So you're gonna give yourself 30 minutes every day to work on it, or what?
Yep. And just 30 minutes and however much I get done, and then just stopping after that.
There you go. You can do 30 minutes. You can handle
Yeah,
that.
totally.
Yeah.
That I have no doubt, but
Nice.
I have to set it as the goal.
Nice. Okay, great. All right. Well, so tomorrow we will, I guess we just talked. So if anyone has questions, go ahead. I was gonna say tomorrow, now that we've kind of thought about some of these baby steps we're gonna work on, we've broken down our tasks. Tomorrow we will actually, flesh out the whole, what should I be doing daily or weekly for the next 3 months. And then we will also talk about, how to know what to prioritize and discover kind of what steps we should focus on and why. And then by the end of it, we'll have our finished fourth quarter plan. So that'll be great. So tomorrow again at 11 will be our last day and we'll finish this up. So if anybody has any questions, otherwise, thank you guys so much and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Manna.
Of course, thank you.